The story begins on a crisp, cool evening in California, where the air is thick with the scent of salt water and the quiet promise of ambition. It is a celebratory night at the residence of Rick Lorenzo, a man whose magnetic charm and penchant for high stakes have made his restaurant, Lorenzo's, one of the top 10 dining establishments in the state. Barnaby Jones, a seasoned investigator whose keen eyes have seen the best and worst of humanity, watches from the periphery as the night unfolds. Tonight is the third anniversary of the restaurant, a milestone that should be filled with laughter and glasses clinking in shared victory. The guest of honor, in his own mind, is the head waiter, Vince Bradford. Vince is a man who carries the weight of missed opportunities and a fading dream of professional greatness, his life tethered to his wife, Nora, a woman of high society whose connections have become the only currency he has left. As the guests mingle, the atmosphere shifts from celebratory to something more brittle. Vince, nursing a sense of entitlement and frustration, is waiting for a public announcement from Rick, a partnership that he believes is his due. Nora, standing beside him, is his constant shadow, her eyes darting between the guests and her husband, her loyalty a strange mix of devotion and calculated control. She whispers to him, urging him to take action, but Vince, trapped in the rigid posture of a man who has lost his way, remains indecisive. The night takes a turn when Rick, ever the player, turns his attention to the guests with an effortless, almost cruel, grace. Amidst the party, the tension between Rick and those he has used comes to a head. Carl Fenton, the head waiter, approaches Rick with a cold, simmering resentment, his words veiled but sharp. Rick dismisses him with a laugh, turning his back on the very people who have helped build his empire. As the night deepens, the party spills onto the beach. It is here, under the pale moonlight, that the facade of the evening begins to crack. Rick, already emboldened by spirits, moves toward the treacherous, jagged rocks that line the shore. He is followed by others, some seeking justice, some seeking answers, some merely watching the shadows. Then, the inevitable happens. A scuffle, a shout lost in the crashing of the waves, and Rick falls. When his body is discovered, the initial ruling is accidental death, a simple slip on the rocks. But for those who knew the man, the story does not sit right. Barnaby Jones is soon brought into the case, hired to peel back the layers of deception. He begins his investigation at the restaurant, finding a world built on hollow promises and fragile alliances. He interviews the staff, noting the way conversations halt when he approaches, the way eyes avoid his steady gaze. He learns of the trail of broken hearts and empty promises Rick left in his wake, a trail that points to a multitude of potential suspects. Vince Bradford finds himself at the center of this web. He is a man struggling to define himself in the shadow of a dead man. His wife, Nora, becomes increasingly protective, her actions becoming erratic, her words a tapestry of half-truths. Barnaby observes their dynamic, sensing the deep, underlying rot in their marriage. He meets with Betty, his daughter-in-law, who has her own history with Vince. To her, Vince is not a killer, but a man who has lost his compass. She fights to believe in his innocence, even as the evidence begins to drift in his direction. The investigation leads Barnaby to the darker corners of the city, to a motel that serves as a quiet witness to the illicit lives of the wealthy. Here, he discovers the identity of a woman who is part of the final chapter of Rick's life. The pieces of the puzzle begin to align. It is not just about a restaurant partnership or a business rivalry. It is about the desperation of people who have tethered their entire existence to the whims of a man like Rick. As the narrative reaches its climax, the truth is laid bare in the very place where it all began. The air is still, the ocean waves a rhythmic heartbeat in the background. Nora, once the steady, guiding hand, is revealed as the architect of a dark plan designed to protect the fragile life she has built for herself and for Vince. Her desperation is not born of a lack of love, but of a terrifyingly narrow definition of it, a love that requires total control, even at the cost of life itself. In the final, tense moments, the masks are dropped. Vince is forced to confront the reality of the woman he is married to, the woman who has been pulling the strings all along. The revelation is a heavy weight that finally breaks the cycle of denial he has lived in. As the authorities arrive, the story concludes not with a roar, but with a quiet, somber realization. The illusions have crumbled, and what remains is the stark, unvarnished truth of a life sacrificed for a dream that was never truly there. The night that began with celebration ends in the cold light of day, leaving everyone involved to face the consequences of their actions in a world where the only thing that ultimately matters is the truth. The journey is complete, and the lesson, though harsh, is clear. Nothing built on lies can ever truly stand.